Hello, everyone. My guest for this very special Yuletide Humanistically Speaking interview will be very well known to all our readers. His origins are somewhat unclear, but I understand that he began life as St. Nicholas, a Greek Christian bishop of Myra during the 4th century, well known for his generosity to the poor folk of that region. His original saint's day was on the 6th of December, when children were bestowed gifts in his honour. But with the advent of the Reformation, which disapproved of the veneration of saints, the gifting day was moved to the 25th of December to coincide with the Christmas celebrations. Since then, St. Nicholas has metamorphosed through numerous stages of evolution to become the legendary figure we now know variously as Father Christmas, Santa Claus, St. Nick, Kris Kringle, or simply Santa. So, first of all, sir, I would like to welcome you and thank you so much for being willing to spare us some of your precious time at what must be a remarkably busy period for you. And the first question I need to ask you is, which name do you prefer to be known by?
Well, what can I say? But thank you so much for inviting me, Maggie. I feel honoured to be interviewed on behalf of Humanistically Speaking by their Alpha interviewer. So thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure and a treat to meet you. Anyway, about my name, well, Santa is fine. Father Christmas is good, and Kris Kringle is perfectly okay. But it would be a mistake to call me St. Nicholas. He was just one of a whole line of Santas that have been around for thousands of years, long before St. Nick. Santas go back to prehistoric pagan times, you know, and indeed during the Ice Age, my headquarters were based at Stonehenge. How's that? Now, not many people know that. And that was even before Stonehenge was built, 4,600 years ago. Anyway, I have never been St. Nick. Even Santas don't live forever, you know. I'm less than 600 years old, for example. It's the spirit of Christmas that goes back at least 10,000 years. And it is passed on from one deserving Santa to another. St. Nick is just one of them.
Thank you for that. That's interesting. That was a lot of information I didn't know about. Now, you have an awful lot of children to deliver presents to on Christmas Eve. So how do you manage to deliver so many presents in that time?
Well, that's a good question. We deliver to about 2,000 million children. But it's not as difficult as you might think, Maggie. Christmas Eve does not come at the same time everywhere at once. There are 24 different time zones around the world, so I have at least 24 hours to deliver them. And if you add in the 6-hour period that I like to deliver them, that's between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., then we have 30 hours overall. So that's about 67 million children delivered to an hour, or 1,117,000 deliveries a minute, or 18,611 children per second. Which is testing, I admit, but just about doable, I think.
That still seems like an awful lot to me. But I bet you get to see a lot of stars on your journey. It must also be a wonderful chance to sightsee.
Oh, you might think that, wouldn't you? But I'm usually concerned about looking where I'm going, as if you're driving a car. So in my case, I'm always looking forward to in the general direction of Rudolph's bottom. As a result, I have not become an expert on the stars, but I am an expert on Rudolph's rear end and will be happy to describe every feature of his rump, if you like. But after 30 hours of methane emissions in one's face, it is not a great sightseeing attraction. His red nose is useful for me, though, to see where I'm going.
Oh, what a thought. We'll be coming back to methane emissions later on. But in the meantime, I understand that your headquarters is at the North Pole, which is, of course, where children address their letters to, but also that it's possible to visit your premises in Lapland. So where is it you actually live, and where is your famous workshop?
Oh, Maggie, well, that's not quite right. My headquarters are in Lapland. I only go to the North Pole for my holidays. No, we couldn't say exactly where we are. We would be forever avoiding children, so the rules are very strict, I'm afraid. You have to be an elf or a pixie or a magic reindeer to get in there. Otherwise, it's top secret. As well you know, Maggie. Cheeky.
It was worth a try. So how many elves do you have working at your workshop?
Oh, loads. Thousands. Couldn't name them all. Can't even count them, Maggie.
What are the working conditions like for them? Are they employed on short-term contracts or 0 hours, for instance? Do they belong to a union?
Well, I don't know how you treat your elves, Maggie, but my elves work for free. So there is no 0 hours contract or union. They just get shelter and food. But they do have a representative by the name of Barney Primrose, who otherwise spends his day asleep, sadly.
That's very odd. But now it's well known that you use a sleigh pulled by reindeer in order to deliver the gifts on Christmas Eve. How do you ensure their welfare? Do you, for instance, have a vet at the workshop who examines them regularly? Is there a restriction on the number of hours they can work?
Well, if you ask me, Maggie, they live a very, very happy life. All they do is sit around normally and ruminate all day. It's only during Christmas when I expect them to do anything at all. It's a good job, if you ask me. And all they do is just sleep all day for the rest of the days, from Boxing Day right the way through to Christmas Eve. So I tell you what, if I had half the chance, if I had my chance again, I'd be a reindeer. That's how good their lives are. Don't you worry about my reindeer.
Well, it's also well known, and you touched on this earlier, it's also well known that ruminants, such as reindeer, are responsible for copious amounts of methane emissions. Living at the North Pole as you do, you will be well aware of the serious threat to the planet of climate breakdown. So are there any plans to change to a more modern, cleaner form of transport, such as an electric vehicle, for instance?
Well, that's very modern of you, Maggie. And well, you know, I have mixed feelings about that. I must admit that cleaner transport has its attractions. You talk about methane emissions from my reindeer, for example. Phew. Well, tell me about it. They drink the sherry, eat the pies, then pop their methane in my face all the way around the world. It's really not very nice. It has occurred to me that we might go around faster if I light up the cloud of methane that they emit and rely more on rocket power. But I worry that my beard might get singed. So if I travelled around in an electric lorry, it wouldn't be the same, would it, Maggie? So I prefer the methane for the romance of it. It is only once a year, after all.
Fair enough. Well, going back to the method of delivery of the presents, which of course has traditionally been my means of dropping them down chimneys, how is this managed now that so many modern homes don't have chimneys? And how do you manage roofs with solar panels? And how do you manage in the case of blocks of flats?
Ah, now you're asking, Maggie. Well, we checked first with Mum and Dad, and they arranged for doors to be discreetly left open so that we can get in the middle of the night, creep into the children's bedrooms while they're asleep, and leave our goods in there. It's just the same as with the tooth fairy, really. But these days, you know, we have to be careful. We don't want strange old men getting in there, do we?
Heavens, no. Okay, so continuing on the theme of modernisation, then there are now various websites that claim to track you on your journey from the North Pole on Christmas Eve. And also there are email addresses where children can address emails instead of sending you a letter. This must take a lot of organisation, so I presume you must now have specialist IT elves who run these services.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Tell me about it. And you would be amazed at what some children ask for. Spaceships, X-ray glasses, living tyrannosauruses, quantum computers, and 3D cameras. You know, gone are the days when all they wanted was a train set, a Cindy doll, an orange, and a chocolate Santa. And maybe a deadly ray gun if they had been specially good. Kids of today, eh? Kuh.
Oh, well, of course, Christmas Eve is the time when we're most aware of your activities, but presumably you and the elves must be working quite hard all year to produce all the goodies that you deliver then. So when do you get any time off? Do you have a holiday in the summer? And if so, where do you go?
Well, of course, Christmas Eve is there are lots and lots of elves working hard all year round in my factory in Lapland. But you know, half the problem is finding out what the good children want. And we have to ask parents all over the world and in every language. So it's not easy, Maggie. But we never forget to laugh, ha, even if we don't know what we're laughing at. And that makes it easier. Some of us actually sing while we work. But when I tried that last year, they all went on strike. I usually spend my holidays at the North Pole, although next year I'll be going to the South Pole because I like a change of scenery now and again.
Wonderful. And I'm sure the penguins will look forward to meeting you.
Oh, they do, they do. They do.
So what do you do after you've delivered the presents?
Well, I go to sleep like anyone else would who has just consumed bucket loads of sherry for the last 30 hours of my rounds.
Well, that brings me to my final question, which is one I've always wanted to know the answer to, and that is, do you actually like sherry and mince pies?
What a very good question, young lady. As a matter of fact, I do like sherry and mince pies, but not at Christmas. Now, let me explain. My reindeer team and I deliver presents to about 2,000 million children all over the world, as I've told you. About half of them leave sherry and mince pies for us. So that's about 1,000 million mince pies and the equivalent of 50 million 1-litre bottles or 50,000 tons of sherry. Now, we're all very grateful for their generosity, so we do try to nibble each pie and take a little sip of sherry. But you know, it is rather a lot. It's an awful lot of sherry, especially. And we have to watch out in case you get a little squiffy along the way. And that would never do, of course, not while you're running reindeers.
No, I can imagine. Well, sadly, that brings us to the end of our time together. So it just remains to thank you so much, Santa, for being so generous with your time at this busy time of year. Thank you.
It's a pleasure and an honor for me, dear. Humanistically Speaking is the best magazine in the whole wide world, and I wish everyone would read it. They'd learn a great deal, and they would enliven their minds. But now we've finished the interview, I would like to know, have you been a good girl?
What would be the fun in that?
That's true.
Oh dear.
Right.